Hello, hello. How's everyone doing tonight?
All right.
Okay, good. Thank you, Roy, for the loud all right. So everyone, thanks for coming in today for this event. I think the winner for longest commute, someone came in from Binghamton today for this event. I also heard a lot of Brooklyn, New Jersey, and some other places. Oh yeah, we're very excited to have you all here and chat all things data, AI, analytics. So the way we normally do these, it's about a 30 to 45 minute panel. And then at the end, we'll do questions and open up the floor if there's any. There's a prize tonight for the best question, because in the past I've had to secretly plant people on my team to ask hard questions. So I'm trying to change the incentive here a little bit. And then this very nice office space, it is Perkins Coie, which is our law firm here at Datalogz. So we just want to thank them for letting us use this space pro bono. I guess we are spending a lot on legal fees, so I guess it's fair. And then to kick off intros, everyone will introduce themselves, but I'm going to start. So I am Logan. I am the CEO at Datalogz. I started the company, I guess, about 4.5 years ago at this point. Prior to that, I was working at the airline JetBlue. And at JetBlue, I was helping to manage the different BI and analytics tools. And we saw this problem of we had all these people creating different reports, dashboards, analytics. They never actually matched. And it became really bad when we reported the wrong numbers to the FAA. And it triggered this, oh my gosh, why do we have so many misaligned metrics and data? I had to go back and delete and email users one by one. I was like, there has to be a better way to do this. So that's how Datalogz was born. Now I've been around for a while. Our office is in Queens and LIC. But yeah, it's not about me. I'll turn it over Joey next, and we'll go right down the line.
Sounds good. Pleasure to be here. Hi, everyone. My name is Joy Singho. I'm an executive advisor and transformation consultant. Currently focused on de-risking AI for the C-suite. Prior to this, I served as a chief data officer at PIMCO, which is a rather large and complex global investment manager overseeing above $2 trillion worth of investments. I hold a MIT Chief Operating Officer certificate as well, and I have an engineering degree from the University of Michigan. Go Wolverines! I also did, master's certificates in systems design and machine learning. So if anybody's interested in talking about what is AI or demystifying AI or get behind the hype, I'm game to chat after the panel. My sort of, over the career span, I've worked in so many different roles and industries. I have come to believe that the four chambers of my heart today represent business, data, AI, and technology, and they all work in synchrony to make the magic happen. With that, I'll pass it to Roy.
Thank you. Hey everyone, good to see everyone here. My name is Roy Daniel. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Definity. We are an agentic data engineering platform targeted at the lakehouse ecosystem. I come from a product and data experience. I was an executive at FIS WorldPay, which is a Fortune 500 financial technology company. Before that, I was a strategic consultant doing data organization and ML and original AI, before Gen AI was a thing. Worked with financial services, retail, telcos. Similar to Logan, Definity was started from my co-founder's experience leading enterprise scale data platform, data engineering teams, and the challenges that those teams are facing, especially as it comes to managing those pipelines and platforms in production. A lot of the efficiencies and optimizations discussion that we'll have today is coming from that experience. And excited to hear the questions and have the conversation today. Over to you, Sunny.
Thank you, Roy, and good evening, everyone. So I'm Sunny. I led data analytics at Indeed, specifically focused on, I sound like a robot, specific focus on sustainability and the people org. So I think my current focus is two things. One is how to improve productivity for analysts and also within everyone within the org. So there's a lot of AI enablement part. The second focus is how to build intelligence as a service at the operational layer, because I was sitting in the strategy and ops org, so that's one key component. Before Indeed, I built 0 to 1 data infrastructure for high growth D2C startup, and also driving top line optimization in marketing, product, sales space for a lot of different brands. So really excited to be here and dive into those conversations.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thank you all very much for those introductions and also joining the panel tonight. We're very excited to have you all. So we have kind of 3 topics and themes laid out that we'll be running through, which is around kind of analytics, BI, intelligence, what's actually happening there at the enterprise level, infrastructure as well, so talking about all the stuff that actually powers of where this data lives, some of the strategy behind it, how are you actually implementing governance, guardrails to make these decisions. And then of course we'll talk a lot about AI through all of this. But I think just given like with all the Claude innovation, it's all I feel like I hear about these days, maybe just tackle that head on at the start. But I'm curious everyone's take of, is Claude actually replacing all software? Is the whole world going to turn into agentic, just take over every single job? From our kind of BI analytics space for Datalogz, like Claude just announced Artifacts, which is basically a new BI tool that could replace Power BI, could replace Tableau. There's stuff on the data engineering side. Anyone in an organization, their job can, I don't know, seems to be there's a lot of automation to be done. So I'm curious, just takes off the bat of, is this real? Is it the SaaS apocalypse is happening? What are actual kind of practical use cases that you think are real or are not? And where do you see the world in a couple of years on the AI front? And then we'll dive back into the other kind of more technical terms. I think this is a good starting point, because for me it's top of mind every day. But yeah, Joey, if you want to give your context first.
Okay.
No pun intended.
Curveball right off the bat. I think, if I think from a small enterprise standpoint, right, SaaS is probably a cheaper deal than build it yourself and compromise on a lot of fronts, right? Quality, security, scalability, and whatnot. So from SMB standpoint, it doesn't make sense to me to think about what you call SaaS apocalypse. From a large enterprise standpoint, it's probably a flipped situation where they have the money to pay, to SaaS vendors. Would they really compromise the security, the brand reputation, and take that risk with vibe coding and building in-house apps? To me, the answer still seems to be no. Where I do see this taking off is a lot of experimentation, and not just on the tech side, even on the business side, where even executives are building applications of different flavors, just to see what's possible, and then go back and kind of push the envelope on the IT side. Hey guys, we can do this. We need to get this in production. We need something like this, some tool like this, right? So a lot of innovation seems to be happening using vibe coding. It's basically, 2 years ago we said natural language is the new coding interface. Anthropic and Claude has pretty much put that on steroids, where anybody can build any application from 0 to 1. So to me, it's a good tool to have for experimentation, for brainstorming, for showing what's the art of the possible. But I can't imagine, especially in large organizations, a CIO managing, vibe-coded applications across 100,000 people. So that's my take.
Awesome. Yeah, I love it. I feel like, to your point, if you need someone to blame at the end of the day, it's like someone's accountable. The same reason I don't replace all the lawyers we use, I don't say it too loudly here in the law firm office, with AI is because if something goes wrong, I can't blame Claude. I have to blame the law firm or the accountant, whoever's working. But yeah, Roy, over to you.
Yeah, I agree, and I'll take it one step forward. I think democratization of data, we probably heard it for the past 3-4 years, obviously on steroids now. I think models, agents, increases that with, hey, I can just access the data, ask questions, get results very, very fast. A couple of points to remember. One is, big part of analyst jobs today is understanding the business, understanding the context, and have the knowledge, institutional knowledge of where to get the data from and what is the right data at the right time for the right audience. In every enterprise organization, there is significant amount of duplication. The same column, the same table that talks about customers and revenue and a bunch of other metrics, and every business unit or every executive might have a slightly different definition, which is a big problem. The big problem today with those agents or models is not the access. It allows executives or any stakeholder to access the data, ask questions, get results fast, and don't have to wait for 2 days for an analyst to provide a dashboard. But the question now becomes, number one, how do I get the answer? And I don't think that the future is text data. I think it is visuals. So there's definitely a component of visualization that is required, not to mention the follow-up question that you want to probably ask on a chart and not just on text. So there's a lot of element there where just an evolution potentially of BI. Secondly, there is how do we get the right answer? To your point about blaming someone, we need someone with this institutional knowledge. It comes back to the question of context. In what context do we feed those models? Again, we'll probably talk about it later on when we talk about the infrastructure and enablement of AI, but context become a real question to be able to solve this.
And where does Definity fit in this context right now?
Great question. Shameless plug. Definity actually comes lower down the stack. We provide similar concept of context, but for data engineers. So data engineers who build, process true big data, distributed processing, lakehouse, Spark-based platforms that then feed into your silver, gold layer, that then feed into BI, that feed into feature store, feed into reportings, reverse ETLs, etc. So again, I'm certain that we'll talk about it in a second, but we provide this context from an engineering perspective. What we're talking about now, I think, is a business context, and kind of, 2-3 years ago we called it semantic layer, which are serving agents for business use cases, business purposes.
Awesome. I want to echo on what Roy is saying, because I feel by the end of the day, we all heard data is the oil and AI is actually the refinery. But they still need people to tell you, okay, where should we ship this? What is the outcome we want to drive? And I feel the answer is really, it depends. I feel this is an interesting year. Like, we are in the era of transformation. It's a year for AI to reset. It's still bottlenecks, and also reset for workforce, to be honest. Recently, I actually did an interesting analysis at Indeed, is look at all the jobs and the skills, what will be replaced by AI, what will be redeployed, and how we upskill different jobs. So it's very interesting. I don't think it's a replace, but it's more transform, evolve each role, how they work with AI. I think in the next 3 to 5 years, it will definitely be a hybrid mode. So imagine you have a virtual worker collaborate with you. Any a dirty or repeated jobs, you have a teammates very happy do for you 24 hours with minimum mistake. So I think that's definitely one very promising side I see.
Logan, actually, you're obviously doing that day to day. You just mentioned it's top of mind for you every day, every night. What do you see across the board?
Yeah, it's funny. With the automation of analytics within our customers, it's just so easy to create something new, where you can get something done in seconds. And what used to take a month, 2 months, 3 months, it's now 30 minutes. You get your MVP done. So I think the development cycle's fundamentally changed. And then, Sunny, I thought something you said was funny as well. When you talk about Indeed kind of optimizing jobs, I think there has to be kind of some irony or joke there. Maybe the next pivot for Indeed is kind of agent job boards next there.
We actually have career robots for both sides. Yeah, so we have developed agents for employer and also developed agents for job seeker. But I would say it still have optimization room.
Interesting. So you don't have to go apply for jobs now. You can just have the agent go on Indeed and submit roles.
Not really. So the use cases we focus on is more like a career mentor. So a lot of people for job seeker is like, why I'm not getting reply? What's stuck with my resume? Is this the right career path for me? So that's the initial phase we focus on. We want to have a partner for job seeker because finding a job is lonely and it's very frustrating. But to your point, Logan, there's a lot of interesting use cases, how we scale and expand there.
Right. And I feel like, I don't know if anyone else feels it as well, but like for everything that I have Claude or OpenAI do, it's like 70-80% there. Like the example I had a couple weeks ago is like we were at the Gartner Data Analytics Summit. And after a conference, we get a list of leads. So we were very happy. We got around 300 leads. I went and said, Claude, can you take this list of 300 leads, move it into our CRM, which is some cool new AI startup CRM. And then I go in there and there's 800 new leads. I'm like, what in the world happened? I only had 300 there from the actual thing. And I said, Claude, where are these extra 500 leads? And the response was, oh, I hallucinated more leads. So I thought you would want more leads. And then I go to kind of investigate, okay, now great, I have to go clean up this activity. And then Claude lets me know there's no API to delete things. The best way to do this is to go one by one, deselect and remove them. So I feel like for all the AI innovation, like this task would have taken me about 2 minutes to do myself. I probably have still someone on my team going through at this point, deleting leads manually, because we decided to go with the AI forward CRM. We don't have an accountability of who really owns it. I can't yell at Claude. So we're still working through these different iterations there, but it's just like, I don't know, all the different things of what you can create faster, get results, is our development cycle as a company is completely changed. Where now we start with like the end solution and work backwards to what works, which works great when we're talking to customers, showcasing the art of the possible into our platform. So I feel like for us, it's really allows speed iteration, which I think goes into every area across the kind of workforce. And if you're doing computer work, there's a lot of course, room for opportunity. But Joey, I'm curious, so you're doing consulting now. Before you were literally the chief data officer at a multi-trillion with a T, I heard that right, hedge fund, investment management fund. So now when you go into a new company, say a large enterprise, and they ask you, I need to implement AI, how do you approach that? What is the actual of going from, hey, we have this big problem statement open to actually getting down to creating some impact, driving value, and how do you measure that?
Great question. Just one comment on the previous one, right? So Google today commented that, to the hybrid development model, 75% of their code is written by AI today. I mean, that is huge. Talk about development cycle. But the one part that impressed me the most goes back to the regulation and safety issue is that code is approved by engineers, right? It's not just written by AI and deployed. Now, the question I'm wondering is how fast can engineers keep up? How many engineers will they need? I don't know, but I think that's the right model to go about it, where you leverage AI to speed up the dev cycle, but then absolutely somebody has to review and authorize it. Going back to your question, Logan, about how do you go about transformation? A lot of people today, especially execs, given all the hype and the partial reality, AI and agentic AI is top of mind for them. Even if they don't understand what it really means for their organization, it's still part of the discussion and part of the roadmap, part of the aspirations, right? So, and you can't sidestep that, otherwise you're not really addressing the need of the hour or the pain point of the hour. The way to go about it is, multi-step. You have to learn more about the organization. Is it a regulated industry or not? How is their current data and AI state and maturity and skill set amongst the people? To then start checking, okay, they've passed phase one of the maturity. They have trust in their data at least, right? Then we can talk about AI. But if the question is, we can't even trust the numbers, then jumping onto AI is not the right rhythm, right? You have to educate and start from the basics, start from the foundation, and educate them. Here's what makes sense. Here's the roadmap. We need your buy-in, right? That's the most critical. We were talking about, buy-in and trust a little bit outside. It's the most critical aspect in developing a relationship with any stakeholder, whether as a consultant and a client or internally. I've faced both scenarios. So being able to recognize those aspirations and then being able to match it with the ground reality and then coming up with a proposal to bridge that gap is the first step to achieving anything in their work, because otherwise if you jump into AI, it's not going to work well, it's not going to be trustworthy, and you're going to lose credibility.
And who are the, key stakeholders that you think actually drive this change? I feel like I used to think the CDO is the one who can make that impact others, but now we're seeing that's a CFO really driving the AI initiatives. What do you see at the enterprises that you're consulting with?
Yeah, it's funny. I've had CFOs driving the agenda. I have CDOs driving the agenda. I've seen business heads driving the AI agenda, right? Where the IT is more, in a facilitating role, enablement role, but really the business is driving what needs to be done, what capabilities need to be developed. So every organization is a little different. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who is asking. Ultimately, it's a partnership between business and IT. You need both sides, no matter where the request is coming from.
Okay, very interesting. And then, Sunny, I'm curious, in your role, what's kind of the biggest change you've seen over the last 12 months with all the new technology innovation?
Oh, that's a great question. I think it's definitely insights automation. So within my team, we develop virtual analysts. We try to automate a lot of intelligence. So for example, before, my team will do a lot of reporting for the board, for the investor relationship, and we lead the quarterly business review. It's thousands of analysts' work annually for 18 executive teams globally. And now we automate everything with agentic workflow. So just a one push of button, 18 tasks sent to executive teams with additional auditing needed. So I think the insights automation part is where I see the biggest change in my day-to-day.
And how do you ensure, trust? You have all the executives, is indeed a public company, you're reporting out these metrics. If they're wrong, it's very bad. How do you ensure that it's right?
That's a great question, and that's where Datalogz come into place. We don't use Datalogz, but we have a semantic layer. We have a centralized, a dictionary of source of truths. So everything is built on top of that, all the agentic. Agentic has a lot of freedom to explore, but whatever they do, they need to have a handshake with the source of truths. And the human in the loop is super important. So no matter what, we still have analysts auditing everything, still try to identify whether there is any, a context involvement, how we do this. So I think that's might raise an interesting question. A lot of people might ask me, say, do you feel dashboard gonna die? Do you feel like agentic reporting gonna replace everything? My feeling is no, because I feel dashboarding depends on the intent. I observe there's 3 types of dashboarding. One is for monitoring purpose. Second is for exploration. Third is people actually just want the data and they manipulate in their own way, in their own visualization, and to build for reporting. I think for the first monitoring purpose dashboard, it's not gonna go away because it's just like you are driving a pilot. You don't want to ask every time to ask, what is my top line? You want to look at the board, you know how's everything going. So those kind of reporting dashboard never gonna go away. The exploration pace, I think, is where, to Logan, your point, is AI gonna help a lot. Because a lot of time, we build a lot of dashboard and people forgot in 2 minutes. It's not because of it's not useful, because of the context evolved, because we build a lot of dashboard for questions might not even get asked. So for the exploration phase, I think that's where AI kind of facilitate a lot of things. So ideally, my vision is like use dashboard to figure out where is the problem. Use AI to figure out how to fix it. Like ideal state. And for the last part, when people actually only needs data, that's when we have a centralized agentic AI control. You centralize all the logic, but you control access and see what kind of insights or data we should deliver to people based on their use cases.
Okay, very interesting. We're not that offended you're not using Datalogz yet. I learned earlier, Indeed, apparently they built their own version of SQL. I think that's what you told me, right?
Yes, so we have IQL is our version of SQL, and we have our version of Python too.
Okay, so I think our goal there is have them build a version of Datalogz to eventually live. And then I guess maybe take a step back. Then we talked about kind of the executive approach, the analytics. So like none of this actually works without a solid foundation. I think all the enterprises right now are running large Spark environments, which spans, of course, Databricks, but other platforms and tools. But Roy, I'm curious kind of your point of view on maybe you just talk about what Spark is, how that's enabling AI, then also what are the foundational changes that actually enable companies to get this enterprise AI right? But going back to kind of the data layer, not just the analytics side.
Yeah, I think we kind of ran very fast in the past few years, right? There was, because remember, there was the modern data stack where it was very, very fun to get some raw data, maybe use an ingestion tool, throw it into a warehouse, build a BI tool on top of it, show some dashboards and everything is fine. I think the past few years, first of all, showed some consolidation of that because folks don't want 1,000 tools in their stack. And secondly, the fundamental needs of big data processing feeding into feature store, feeding into AI, feeding into semantic layer that then again is absorbed by agents, is there. Now, the fundamentals of data engineering still require this data to be reliable, us understanding what's there, pipelines to work efficiently, pipelines to finish on time, pipelines to meet SLAs. So I think, you talked about it, Joey. If your foundation is not in place or not in a maturity state, you can do some cool demos with AI, but you can't really drive it to production across the board at an enterprise level. And I think this productization is where a lot of the AI initiatives fail today. A lot of it is because of data readiness. And that's where we see a lot of the teams spend time today on the engineering side. I think we also see a lot of the times the BUs, the business drive some of the business use cases. Analytics team, CDO drive the business use cases. Data engineering, data platform teams drive this enablement, but the first step is data readiness. And we see that, you asked about that, some of the trends. We see some consolidation in terms of the actual platforms. They want simplicity. I think there is a lot of focus on efficiency in terms of, first of all, we need to reduce cost because, hey, there's this new tool that eats a lot of tokens and we need to pay it somehow and we need to find some room in the budget. And there's also, again, we talk about duplications and the ability to manage all of that at scale. Now, if you add on top of all of that, agents now building pipelines, similar to your comment on Google, Databricks just announced last week, I think that for the first time there's more code generated with AI and Genie versus human written code in Databricks. That's gonna increase 10, 100x. All of a sudden you can't manage all of that with just the same team or maybe a smaller team. So getting this foundation in place, making sure that you can everything is run reliably, efficiently, in the way that you can actually monitor and understand becomes critical to feed into and enable all of those AI initiatives that come next.
And Roy, I guess just to expand a little bit, like you've built a great company business with Spark as the foundation of it. And I know you guys, but they're announcing a massive funding round coming up. Like they are crushing it in this area of the data stack. But can you talk a little bit about why Spark is so important? Like I feel like I hear endlessly from every one of our customers at Datalogz is like moving this to Databricks or enabling this Databricks use case. And I just hear Databricks every day. But can you talk a little bit about the Spark as a foundation for that and why that is so important and why does Databricks have a 100 billion valuation, 200 billion, I don't even know at this point. But like why is that such a popular platform? And if you just provide some industry context there, I'm personally wondering.
Of course. And first of all, Databricks obviously came from the inventors of Spark and it's kind of the poster child for that, but the Spark-based lakehouse ecosystem is larger than that. There are teams managing their own Spark, whether on-prem, Kubernetes, cloud. There are other Spark offerings over there. But Spark at the base is distributed processing. Hadoop, Spark. It's just a method to really do big data processing in an optimized way. Efficient, optimized, fast. When we talk about, again, processing those massive amounts of data, whether it's batch or streaming, by the way, this power originally was what Spark was all about versus the traditional warehouse. And I think in the past few years, we are seeing this kind of convergence of the benefits of the warehouse, the benefits of the data lake that allowed you to do both structured and unstructured, obviously storage and processing, now converging into the lakehouse architecture. Everyone today wants the best of both worlds. That's the kind of winning architecture I think go forward. And in a lot of cases, Spark is powering that. By the way, you run a lot of SQL on top of Spark. The Databricks has a big SQL offering and a big SQL warehouse offering, but it all runs within this context of Spark distributed processing that, from a data engineering perspective, on the one hand allows you significant amount of power, a lot of configurability. With great power comes great responsibility. You probably kind of caught that I'm going to do that. And a lot of room for, a lot of power, but also a lot of room for error, a lot of room for mistakes, a lot of room for not really what you intended. It becomes very easy today to put a pipeline live running in production. Understanding the intrinsics of it becomes very, very hard, especially when you do that at scale.
Gotcha. And Joey, I'm curious your take on the infrastructure side as well on, I guess everything Roy said, just to echo or your perspective, if anything's different there of what you've seen in the market.
Yeah, so just to add on to what Roy said, right, to make it real. So imagine you have 100 gigabyte table. I know that's not large enough, that's not big data by any means, but if you have your typical query, you've got 5-10 years of history. What Spark allows, of course, with the right configuration, is just picking a sliver of that data in just a few seconds, right? So if you configure your table correctly, the parameters correctly, and it's relatively easy even for a non-developer. So that's what Spark enables: quick, efficient processing of data. From an infrastructure standpoint, I think there are multiple platforms today that more or less have similar offerings. So it's no longer, I think, about, hey, which platform is the best. Every technology, every platform is going to have some, lots of pros and some cons. The question really is, how do you maximize leveraging the pros and circumvent through creativity all the cons? Otherwise, every few years you'll end up migrating from one platform to another, which serves nobody except maybe the person in the chair. So that's my take on the choice of infra. I'm As far as agentic goes, I think all of these big platforms, I mean, Google had their big event today. Snowflake and Databricks are going to have it in June. Agentic AI is the next big thing for them, where Google said today they have seen 60% year-over-year increase in tokens, right? That's huge. And I'm not sure orgs are getting the ROI on that, right? I still see a lot of companies experimenting, which is good. Experimentation is the precursor to innovation. But I don't think most firms are that mature yet to get the ROI. But just 60% growth is huge, and that's why you see these cloud providers investing so much in more and more and more data centers. If you talk about what data infra might look like in a few years, I mean, I don't think it's far-fetched to say it's literally going to be a private cloud above our heads, above the building. Data centers in the sky, right? That's the next avenue that the industry is exploring, in addition to oceans. So I think from a cost standpoint, governance standpoint, observability becomes a key criteria. It's no longer optional. You have to have a good overview and control of your entire org, whether it's data pipelines, whether it's agentic pipelines, to be able to measure what's going on, assess security threats. That's also not optional anymore. And ultimately, FinOps has to come into picture. You have to justify why you're spending so much money on that infra, right? So tying every pipeline to a business use case to an ROI is essential. At some point, people are, executives, finance is going to ask, like, what are we getting out of all this spend? Today, if I, talk about customers, they have already signed up for capacity that they're not using, right? That's just money down the drain. Part of it is FOMO. Everybody else is going, 100 miles an hour speed on this road. Part of it is high aspirations. They do really want to get there. It's just that it's not going to happen overnight. So, from a cloud vendor standpoint, they're investing a lot. Today, Google announced, 2x price performance improvement in their lakehouse. Okay, great. But on the org side, are we really leveraging that, right? So the two at some point have to converge and make it realistic, pragmatic, not just hype. I think that's where the infra conversation is going.
Very interesting. Yeah, and the interesting piece, when you talk through that, I think you listed a bunch of different areas of technologies, like almost describing different point solutions for different problems. So you said data observability. That's one area. You have your infrastructure, you said in the sky, but maybe it's in the space data centers. But I think what I'm seeing as well at enterprises today is like there's a lot of point solutions out there. Like us at Datalogz, we solve one very specific problem in the analytics area. Dfinity solves a big problem in the Spark area. There's all these different companies, startups out there that do these. Or there's, I guess, the argument you can go with Microsoft and solve 70% of these okay. I'm curious if you're seeing a trend towards more consolidation of stack, as saying, hey, we'd rather be locked in, understand a lot more, or still is we're kind of this modern data stack era of we have a data catalog plus an observability tool plus a BI observability tool plus 3 different BI tools. Or are you seeing more kind of consolidation across your customers?
In general, I think the direction is, okay, get one of these large data platforms which offer a lot. But even with them, I've seen where you still get these point solutions or like best in class in one area solutions. Goes back to the point about every technology is going to have some pros and cons. You can gather all the best in class tools in some area, but really the question is, how do you orchestrate them? How do you make them work together to achieve what you need to achieve, right? So it's, again, less about technology, and the choice comes down to the person in the seat, whether they want one big platform, which makes it safer for them, versus a bunch of tools that they then have to spend time integrating, and they're not designed to work together, right? So one of the frameworks MIT teaches is systems thinking. If you are integrating like 5 or more systems that are not designed to work together, that's a recipe for disaster, because you can't really bring them together in a cohesive manner, right? So having a few is okay, manageable, but piecemealing several different technologies together is probably not a safe or efficient choice from an enterprise standpoint.
I actually want to chime in on that. So, again, I think a few years ago, modern data stack was a great dream. Point solutions and narrow solutions for every little problems. I think we saw a huge ramp in data usage democratization. In big enterprises, every BU had their own mini stack and tools, and then there was the horizontal teams and a lot of hub and spoke type of models and federated models. And I think we're seeing teams, again, at high scale, it's very hard to manage. There's lack of consistency. When you're trying to ask a question, especially today with agents, very hard to get a single answer. So teams definitely want to consolidate, move into, as much as possible, a unified, cohesive solution. Of course, that doesn't exist in the market. What I'm actually seeing is a lot of the big platforms out there are in a race to get this platformization into their platform. That's what I think we see a pretty significant M&A activity in the space, because all of a sudden, a platform doesn't want to do just processing. They want to have cybersecurity, and they want to have intelligence, and they want to have BI, and they want to have observability, and they want to have very specific vector databases, and we've seen this with of course Databricks and Snowflake, and we've seen this with other big platforms, and we see even ServiceNow, right, acquired a cybersecurity company, Armis, and they acquired LLM observability, and they acquired Pyramid Analytics, and they acquired Datalogz last year. So I think there's a big platformization. Of course, Salesforce, Informatica, Fivetran, and DBT merger. There's a lot of consolidation. Teams want a single solution that does a lot, and those big platforms are in a race on how do we get their first lock in or capture market share. And I think the idea is, how do you get to most of that with your platform, but on the other hand, have the core tenets of what you need from those other areas to make sure, again, that you can run it at scale.
Exactly. Yeah, and I feel like, we work very closely a lot with the Microsoft stack. And one of the reasons we exist is because there's so many issues in the Microsoft platforms that you can't buy that and expect things to actually work. Every day we're reading docs, and they list different APIs that just don't exist anymore. And we're like, okay, if we're in this every day, reading these docs, building for it, and we're literally having to email Microsoft probably weekly and say, hey, this API, by the way, your product team changed this, you should probably update this. There's so many, gaps out there where I think these point solutions is you may have 70% on Databricks, but Databricks launched something new. Yeah.
Well, just a reminder, you're being recorded.
Yeah. Well, luckily, we don't get more than a few thousand views on YouTube. That was a joke. We probably will get 1,000 views. We'll see. So I guess kind of last question we'll open up, and just a reminder, we have a nice prize for the best question. So let your gears turn. I guess this isn't really a question, but pre-panel, I prepared a nice pamphlet with kind of questions and things we're going to talk about. On the printout, my font was way too small and I could not read it at all. So I decided just to kind of ad-lib different questions. So I'm curious from the panel, is there anything that you wanted to talk about that I just missed in the agenda before we move on to the audience questions?
I think maybe one thing I want to add is from my perspective, because the data we deal with need a high accuracy and a very sensitive. Because for example, if my company gonna have a layoff, we are the one doing all the analysis and decide who's gonna get impacted. So there's a lot of sensitivity and legal compliance into that. So whenever we build agentic flow, we need to make sure the governance is really there. The legal compliance, sensitivity, where we log all those information need to be very clear. And sometimes I was thinking instead of big data, now it's actually we focus on small data. So like in the old days, it's like the data pipeline you build for analysts, data scientists. You try to figure out what are their use cases, how we should organize our data model. Nowadays is like we build for agent. What is this agent's use cases? How should we organize this? But to both Joy and Roy's cases, it's just so fast. By the end of the day, there will be so many pipelines, so many agentic workflow, and how we manage that, it's a mess. So that's something I've been keep thinking, like what is the right way or what is the best practice to manage or govern all those?
Yeah, I guess governance we didn't touch on, but I feel like it is one of the most important things out there is how you do that at scale.
How many of you have used a data catalog in your careers? How's your experience? My view is, and I read this somewhere, that when you subscribe to, let's say, a home furnishings catalog or something, you get a nice, polished, maybe scented catalog in the mail, right? That's what a catalog is. Modern version of catalog is an inventory of every single table that exists in your organization. And now add to that all the PDFs and other files and videos and whatnot, right? So that's not how a catalog should be. Me as a user, whenever I needed new data, I always struggled. A, where do you find it? B, then you have to wait to get access. C, then you don't have a data dictionary. D, then you have to go out to the vendor and figure things out. Imagine if we as humans with all the intelligence had those kind of challenges, what would AI do? Right? It's not magic. AI is just mathematical equations. So the best thing if you have AI and agentic AI, any kind of language model AI on your roadmap, on your wish list, invest in what we call now context or just metadata about your data and keep it very clean. Do not expose it to every single file in the org. These vendors show very cool demos that work in 5 minutes for an entire business case that might otherwise take 5 weeks. And it's all, because it's being mocked and data is clean and everything, which doesn't happen in real organizations, right? If you talk about a PDF, well, do I have the recent version? Do I have an older version? Which one do I trust? So my sincere advice would be to invest in your catalog, keep it clean, keep it nicely, easy to understand. Don't have cryptic things, cryptic column names, cryptic file names. Make it easier for AI, and then AI can really help with everything else.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think your point there on context is so important in this day and age. Like if a human can't understand it, how can an agent understand it, or would they even be able to? Awesome. And then, so now I guess we'll open up to the audience for questions. So if you have questions as well, after we go through a few different Q&As, we'll have more kind of networking, hanging out, and just want to kind of call out, there's like some very interesting, exciting people doing different things in the room. So just to entice you to stick around and network, hang out, is like we have someone in here, Dennis, who runs the largest human performance investment funds. Roy led all of data at Lexcotica, which owns all the sunglasses, glasses brands. We have New York City's chief data scientist in the back. So there's all these different industries, folks in the audience. So I'd encourage everyone to hang out a little bit, network, grab more Earth Day food that hopefully tastes delicious. But before I do that, any questions that we can answer? There's a prize for the top ones. Yes?
I have a question. How important is the semantic layer, and what are the key inputs that goes into building it, right, for the AI agents?
Okay, I will chime in first, and the two gentlemen can come in. I feel it's super important. It's critical for the success. And the semantic layer, of course, depends on your use cases. You think about what you should standardize, what you should include it, and what is the operational model you want to work across the team, how we together maintain the semantic layer, how we evolve this together, the version control, have a base one, and then coming to think about how I'm gonna optimize it, because it's gonna be a work on its own, how we maintain the semantic layer. Luckily, I think AI is really good on three things, like the cost optimization, the documentation, the quality checks. So there's a lot of area of AI can help in when it comes to building and maintaining semantic layer.
My understanding of semantic layer was more from a BI standpoint, where it's like, your objects, your metric definitions and stuff. I think for AI, that's not all that it needs. That's why semantic layer has now evolved into what we call context layer, with the air quotes. Whether you start from your catalog to maintain that context, or you put it in an ontology, or you build a specific, layer for it. That's your something you have to decide. But it's not just the attributes and the metric definitions. It's kind of an extension of metadata, right? How would a machine understand, using language, what your data means, or what your data what data you have, right? So context is the single most important success factor in my mind to make AI not just easier, but more reliable and accurate. I'll give you a real example. I built a conversational analytics program using Databricks Genie. I spent some time doing a data transformation before I went on to Genie. And one of the departments, had a very generic code, ABC. And I wasn't expecting Genie to answer anything about ABC, right? So I just asked, still to try, because that was one of the sample questions requested. What were my sales for ABC? What's your guess? What happened next?
Made something up.
Okay. Hallucination. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. It figured out ABC was one of the department codes, and it calculated the sales for it, and gave the right answer. So if you keep your data clean, AI will do the rest. It is that powerful, and it is that simple.
Interesting. I have a, maybe slightly different take on the semantic layer and importance. So when I think of semantic layer, I think similar, Joey, to how you described it is, you're a big company. You may have 5 different ways that you track revenue across. It could be your monthly revenue. It could be your annual. It could be, is it realized? Is it when it hits the bank? There's all these different definitions. So goal of a semantic layer in my mind, to make it simple, is just align on a standard throughout a company. But the reality at most enterprises, I think there's an Okta study like last year that said the average enterprise has more than 400 different applications accessing data. In each of those 400 applications, there's probably a bunch. You have your Oracle NetSuite with one area of revenue. You have a copy of that in Snowflake going to a Power BI dashboard. You have 100 people who have screenshotted revenue into PowerPoints and put them on Teams. So to define a semantic layer and enforce it across an organization sounds like an impossible task. Like if you can't do that with one metric and have accountability everywhere, it's going to be near impossible if you take any large enterprise. The number of alignment as a people problem and semantics that you need to define is enormous, just the amount that has to happen there. Actually, a couple days ago, we were working on kind of a blog post exactly as like why the semantic layer would never work. This is a topic I'm glad you asked, a great candidate for the prize later. But my kind of take is like you need almost like a audit ability across all the different places that access it. And if no one is making a decision off your 2 version of revenue, that doesn't matter. But in the case where you have a SVP viewing one number, and they think it's the same number as the VP on their team, and those numbers are misaligned, then that is a problem. So what's important to me is the ability to audit where decisions are being made, tell if they are conflicting, and if there's a conflict, you figure out a solution on a common ground. But I don't think the approach of, hey, we're gonna go implement Databricks, go find all these metrics one by one, have a bunch of different semantic layers defined. I think as soon as a human or agent or other thing starts interacting with that, you're gonna lose your defined semantic layer in a matter of weeks, months, maybe days, maybe even hours, depending on your company size. And it's a near impossible task.
I'll just add, like, I have seen genuine cases where either different departments look at revenue differently, or the definition of that particular metric itself is different. So it's not always possible to consolidate and standardize. And in such cases, my recommendation would be to respect the differences and figure out how do we label them such that they don't suggest that they're the same, right? Because there are genuine business reasons to look at numbers differently. And if we try to force it, adoption is going to be very tricky, even if you get the sign-off, because executives were used to seeing numbers a certain way, will be thrown off. Like, what does this number represent? What happened to the other number, etc. So yes, do your best to standardize, consolidate, but at times, if there's really a need, respect that and work around it, somehow make it distinct.
I think this is very fascinating because actually for our org, semantic works really well. And I was thinking back, why? I think it's because we are the data owner, we control all the access. So for everyone want to use my data, they have to obey my logic.
You're the boss.
Yeah. So in that case, it's like, oh, for us, it actually works. But it's really fascinating to hear from different perspective.
Yeah. And the environments where we're seeing this, I guess it is large self-service, where it's kind of the policy is like anyone in any business unit can start creating things, and that's where maybe it's hard. But I guess if you're right, if you are the police, and if someone violates and you can chop off that action quickly, then you can keep everyone aligned.
By the way, that's another, I think, big trend we're seeing right now where there's an oscillation, right? I think data started very centralized in the organization. You had one centralized data platform, data engineering, data analytics team. It became unmanageable at scale. We moved to a much more, hub and spoke, federated type of architectures, type of teams, a lot of self-serve, which created its own set of problems. Again, multiple definitions of the same thing, significant amount of duplication of code, pipeline, dashboards. I think we're now seeing a little bit of coming back to a little bit more centralized organizations where the business teams can access data. They're still close to the business, they understand the needs, they understand what they are asking for, but the definition, context creation is a little bit more centralized, again, in order to create some type of standardization. It's an oscillation, depends where you are on the maturity curve for your data org. With AI and context, again, I think that the shift to context layer is real. There's other questions about memory and what context you're actually feeding AI. You can't feed all the context because otherwise Google's going to be very, very rich. I think there's a oscillation a little bit more into more centralized approach with self-serve on the business side.
Okay, awesome. Yes, a few questions.
So, an admission of naivety first. I had the need for a semantic layer, and I didn't until right now as I was Googling while you were talking, I didn't realize that that's what a semantic layer was. So essentially I've been building out dictionaries that translate technical terms to SQL fields. So what tools do you guys use at your organizations for generating the semantic layer? And how do you use the semantic layer? Are you feeding it in as part of the prompt, or do you pre-process the user's question and specifically just translate using the semantic layer and then go ahead and feed to your models?
That's a great question. I think for us, so for my team is I inherit a new team after reorg. So when I join the team, that's the issue. There is no dictionary. It's the standard. The metrics is not standardized across different org. What I do is we use Snowflakes. So Snowflakes has a lot of Cortex AI-related function. They are okay, but their AI make mistakes. With my team, what we do is we actually use AI to glean through all the past 5 years Git, like all the analysis, all the reporting, and all the dashboarding the team have. And we do human auditing. What is still makes sense as of today, and then we have a centralized semantic layer that fit into the Snowflake, and also we build our internal like a business metrics library. So that's across the org. Every know this is what as of today the most accurate definition. Is it ideal? I don't think so. There's still a lot of places need to evolve, but that's a good starting place for us, especially when I inherit a messy team, need to clean from the ground up.
And it's a map?
The map?
Is it a map? Like, what's the data structure?
Oh, the data structure. The output we fit in, there's different segments because I think it depends on what's the data, the business use cases you have. For example, for our business use cases, there's different segmentation we care about. So for each segmentation sector, there's a dedicated dictionary related to that path. So if you call that a map, yes.
That's exactly, yeah.
I have used a couple of approaches. One is when it's kind of a simple A to B translation, try baking it into the database itself. B, feed it into your prompt instructions. It's like a system prompt or something. But I try to keep the system prompt light because what I've heard is the heavier you make it, the worse it gets. So my strategy is less is more.
Sorry, I don't know if you saw the Claude caveman thing, where it's like there's some open source project to talk to Claude like a caveman, so use fewer tokens. Like I said, results. And then on kind of, I guess, a different approach of how we're solving, because we have a feature within our platform that's really just, this is where you're parsing all the logic from your Power BIs, Tableaus, clicks of the world, and then we create a graph network. So you can go and click on any semantic layer or metric definition and dive in and see all the potential conflicts throughout the org. For us, it really is, if it's a large environment and you have thousands of reports or thousands of dashboards, you know where there's conflicts, where things don't match, and you can say, okay, this report defined this semantic, go find all the conflicts out there. So we create that kind of visualization map and solve it from, I think, a different kind of lens there. But I saw another question over here. I think in the back.
Sure.
Me?
Yeah.
Hi. So I'm Kelly Zhou. I'm actually leading next week's Reuters Momentum AI New York City discussion. What is our agentic AI? What is our health AI? So that's really great to be here. And first of all, in terms of the agentic AI layers, how would you think about procurement sourcing the data from different places? Large enterprise, for different functions, they actually have different needs for different data. So they just go ahead and acquire that data. When you have that data catalog, the best case is that at least you can see the function that's somewhere there they are using this type of data, so you don't need to rebuy another similar type of data. But the challenge is that nowadays there's also firewalls for compliance reasons. For example, trading versus research. For example, R&D versus commercialization. You're not really, when you build this engine end to end, here what we think is just you can see everything. But the problem is you artificially need to separate so that you're not being influenced, left hand not being influenced by the right hand.
Which org did you say you were from?
My organization? Oh, I actually own 2 companies. But
Okay, excellent.
I'm an AI entrepreneur.
Awesome.
But I just give you a little background, okay? So
Right.
I was the head of data science for the entire Children's Hospital Boston in the Harvard system as a faculty. And also was the head of analytics advisor. So I got a chance to see the team actually apply all data sources. So every day you're thinking about the pain points of you want to use all of the data or you cannot use all of the data because of all these compliance reasons.
That's a fair point. So when I was doing unstructured data, this came out. It can be compliance driven, it can also be contract driven, right? So if your vendor has only allowed you to use that particular data set for a specific business unit or purpose or whatever, right? So that's another problem where you can't really reuse that data for other purposes. So at least at that point, I couldn't figure out how to circumvent that, or I don't think it can be circumvented. It's something you have to abide by. The best case scenario is you make it at least show in the catalog that it's there without giving read access. And then if somebody needs it, at least they have a point of contact, they know this exists. Then they have to work with procurement to add their use case if they can. Maybe that requires paying more to the vendor or whatnot, depends. But at least they'll be aware that, okay, this data set exists. I've seen situations, and I've heard of situations where the same vendor is selling the same data to different parts of the organization like 5 times. So that's not an ideal scenario, even if you have a procurement department, right? So
It's good for the vendor.
of course, they would like 50, not 5. But at least from a visibility standpoint, if we can make that visible to whoever needs it through the catalog, and then obviously they'll have to work with procurement to figure out how to get access to it.
The European government is having something called the European Health Data Space. All these uses of data and how they use it, analytics results, these are all being cataloged. So it's like entire European Union sort of activity. But I think for us it's very hard even within the same enterprise.
Definitely.
Yeah. Awesome. And I think we have one more question. Maybe you saw your hand up there.
So basically, in the same context of metadata, semantic layer, context engineering, right? So Google announced today there's an agentic data cloud.
Yeah.
So it's basically allows you to bring data through data shares or through cross-cloud, things like that, right? So, and I see that pattern with Salesforce has its own data cloud, which is again saying you can initiate actions out of the insights that you bring out of data cloud. Cortex has it, Databricks has it, all of this similar to...
Yeah, I was surprised they couldn't come up with a unique branding.
Yeah.
They all call it data cloud.
Yeah, so I think you kind of get my question. So where is this going, right? So if I have data, it's again the same thing, right? I'm not having a central context space from where I look at it. And Logan, to you, if my agents are generating reports, that becomes another issue for you to kind of, the sprawl becomes 10 times more and you're not able to control it. Do you have that visibility now, or is there a plan for it?
Yeah.
Like all your agents, anybody can come and ask for reports and they're doing it. I've done it.
Right.
So,
Yeah, from us, I guess our kind of Datalogz and how we fit into that story is we really focus on the output of the agents today. So if you have an agent that creates a new PowerPoint, Tableau, Excel file, and those are getting hits and views, then you have a risk, a sprawl problem, there's a cost, there's metric alignment. So we are very focused on auditing everything that ends up in these kind of analytics layers. And is it a conflict? Is it efficient? Is there a governance risk? Really at that output layer, but our customers are asking over and over again, it's like, hey, can you catch it earlier? We want to know if someone asked Copilot, or we wanted to know if someone ran some new prompt. So I'd say right now, kind of, as the whole world has changed very quickly, I think we're at a point where we have to decide do we want to move a little earlier in the analyst decision process, or keep catching in on kind of the tail end, the auditability once it's been created. So I think what
there's a pattern in the tail end. Then people will ask you, where is it being initiated, so I can down the source. That's what I'm trying
Exactly. Yeah, so you can work backwards from there.
Yeah.
And I think my issue with moving back a layer is like a lot of the AI questions, like the way I use Claude, it's a lot of experimentation. I think someone mentioned that earlier as well. It's like, I ask a bunch of questions, I get answers. I don't want those being audited. Hey, there's a governance or semantic violation in my workflow. It only matters if it's getting used and viewed and other people are adopting it. That's my point of view, but.
I also want to know, where is this heading? I mean, if I have too many data clouds, which I do.
Cross cloud. I'm sure you saw that.
Yeah. More governance, more observability, more vendor solutions to manage the multi-meta.
See, reading between the lines, right? All these vendors they make their platforms compatible one way or the other with other vendors, right? In the name of open standards and whatnot. But what they really want is to have all of the data in one place on their platform. So that's what reading between the lines is. Now, whether that's a reality or not depends on your organization.
So in with Power BI, they recently cut off direct access to a piece of Databricks, where you can't get the certain Databricks calls into Power BI semantic model. And I think the reason is it's going from kind of an open system is we want to close this off. It was all over the Reddit Power BI Databricks threads the last few days. I need to fully understand before I kind of talk about what that actually means, what it does. But it is a very, I'd say, hot trending debate right now across the data threads is Microsoft close some access, say, this is our account, we're going to own it, no external tools for this type. And I guess there's TBD on how big of a change that actually is, but I don't know, maybe we'll see more closed vendors as you need to go with this stack and we don't want things shared outside.
The one thing I saw, I'm surprised to hear that because recently I think one of the Databricks release notes states that they're in the process of making their metric views compatible with Power BI for reporting and whatnot, right? So you don't have to replicate, you don't have to have two governance layers, one on the Databricks side for direct access, one in Power BI again modeling the same data. So I'm a little surprised that they're going kind of against that.
Yeah, it was the Microsoft side.
Yeah.
Backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I think that's all the time we have, and I guess I give the award-winning question over here. And then I think there's plenty of food. Awesome. Yeah, thanks everyone for coming tonight. I think there's more food, drinks, and thank you Perkins Coie for letting us use the office space, and for the panelists joining as well.